Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting has been posted according to open meeting laws.
Roll call.
President Seeger.
Here.
Trustee Alexander.
Here.
Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Johnson. Here. Trustee Renucci.
Here.
Trustee Smalley. Here. Trustee Wisniewski.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, citizen participation per Village Resolution 2017-01. Anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject can be anything, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in discussion regarding comments because it was not part of a publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they are participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. So with that being said, would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? Would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? One last time. Anybody like to speak during citizen participation? I will close citizen participation and move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Miscellaneous business, consideration of a property, general liability, and other insurance coverages proposals with possible approval from February 1st through January 31st, 2024. And I believe we got Paul and Matt for a presentation tonight. You guys want to come up to the mic here? Oh, push the button right there just so that.
There we go. All right. See how quick I pick up on things? That might be a first sign of things. Thanks for inviting us, and thanks for what you do too, for the work you do for the village. Yeah, so I'm Paul Leslie. You can go to the next slide where we're told to try to keep this efficient, and we are going to do that. So this is the agenda we're going to follow here. Just some introductions. We're going to talk to you a little bit about. You probably know about the League program, the League of Wisconsin, but we're the League of Wisconsin's insurance program. And then we'll talk about the what we came up with for a program that's an offer for you all that we think is a very nice offer. And we'll talk about the three different key components of an insurance program: pricing, coverage, and service. We're going to make our recommendation. You can imagine what that's going to be. And then we'll talk about next steps. So we'll get all through that pretty quickly. So Matt, why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having us. I'm Matt Becker. I run the League Insurance Program since 2019. And then prior to that, I spent 13 years at a similar public entity program in Illinois. Yes, I'm a Bears fan, as it says. I should probably insert suffering in there somewhere.
I snuck that in.
Yeah, but it is 45 minutes till kickoff, right, on the game that matters. So, you know, I like municipal insurance just because I respect what you guys do and sort of the nonprofit situation that kind of plays into the fact, but we'll get into that. Paul?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. All right, so we'll just keep jumping in and out here. I don't know if you saw what was sent to you, but basically I've been doing this for about 15 years. I got a specialty in municipalities and public entities. I do a lot of school districts as well. My background's I'm a CPA, so I always think it's important to understand the financial side of it. Woo-hoo to the fellow CPA up here. You don't have it after your name, so, but I try to sneak it in there. So hopefully that helps out. I help in a lot of areas, loss control, and obviously all the specialties of a public entity. Matt kind of has sold himself short. He's brought even more programs to the League Insurance Program. We'll talk a little bit about those. So let's go to that next slide. There was a bullet point in there that I must not get in on time, and it did say Packers fan, so go Pack. All right, R&R Insurance, I don't know if you know about them. We're out of Pewaukee. We have locations in Madison, Appleton, got a satellite office in Tennessee. We have over 200 employees, so we are a larger agency, and because of that, we can provide a lot of services that are important, hopefully, including property and casualty, what I do. We also do employee benefits, personal lines, and we have a wealth management SBU. Next slide, please. This is spelt wrong. It's missing an S on there. Just notice that. But we have a full group of professional services. And, you know, that's just the team that we built up. It's kind of the way we reinvest into the agency. We have anything from loss control to a JD to claims consultants and many more. Of course, a cyber director too, because cyber has really gotten to be an interesting situation. Next slide, please. This is the team that we would assign to you. It'd be myself, a guy by the name of Mark Turner, who's a work comp specialist, and then Carly Davis, who's really the one who's kind of the brains of the operation, and she would do the day-to-day stuff. She's your support, Eileen and Kathy, when you need it day-to-day. Next slide. So Matt, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to have you jump in a little bit more because you run this. I would tell you one of the most important things that I want to stress that I've found, I mean, I work with a lot of different carriers, anything from Liberty to Travelers to West Bend Mutual, but the league insurance program, one of the really nice things about it is a non-for-profit. Their goal is to support cities and villages in the state of Wisconsin and have a legitimate ongoing concern, but it's a non-for-profit. So Matt, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about it since it's your baby.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Paul. You know, this is all we do, is municipal insurance in Wisconsin. We don't write manufacturers, contractors, anything else like that. This is what we focus on. And we take that very seriously, that it's a member-owned program. So I think what's important for you guys to take away is just how we view the philosophy of the program and how it's run, right? We understand it's a member-owned program. It's operated for you. There's no stockholders, outside investors that we have to answer to. So we don't need to make profit per se. We just need to make sure we have enough money to pay claims into the future. So we're not trying to charge any more than we have to, right? So I think that's important to know. And that comes from my philosophy as well as our board of directors. And our board of directors is made up basically of your peers from cities and villages all over the state, all different kind of positions, you know, administrators, clerks, mayors, you know, everything. To keep it diverse, you know, big, small cities as well. So it's really a group that's got your interests in mind as well as theirs. And that alignment, I think, is huge. You know, one thing that's also important to understand is that we run this program for you from a coverage standpoint too. You see a lot of, you know, bad stories about insurance companies and how they try and get out of claims and this and that. That is not how we operate. This is your program. I tell my claims people, if there's an issue, let's find a way to cover claims, not deny them. You know, we have a really broad coverage form to try and take away a lot of that. But if there's ever an issue, we always err on that side. So I think that's important just to understand kind of where we come from as a program and how we want to manage it. You know, it's all your money, all the money of all the communities. So we're really proud of being efficient with your money as well, because that's what matters to you, right? You don't want to pay more to your insurance company. I'd rather have you keep it and do more good in the community. So in a nutshell, the pricing, the coverage are all there, designed for municipalities, and the services that come along with the program are also designed specific for municipalities, whether it's law enforcement, employment practices, stuff for you. We do have trainings for you guys as a board. You know, if you want help on education, whether it's for new members or anything like that, there's plenty available for you guys. You know, we work with attorneys that are specialists in municipal operations. You know, they are excellent at what they do. Anybody who's a good municipal attorney in the state works with us, right? And it's a specialized field. So that's from a high level how I think you want to hear about this program. I'll let Paul kind of get into the details or answer any questions you have on coverage and get into pricing and things like that. But certainly, my contact information's on here, and I always tell any of you, if you have a question, call my cell phone. Anybody can call me anytime. Happy to answer any questions. So, yeah, next slide. Want to talk MPIC?
Sure, you can do it.
Okay. So in coordination with the league insurance program, we work with the municipal property insurance company to provide property insurance. And this company was born out of the failure of the state property fund in 2015. So we got together, we helped create this program, and now it's the main insurer of municipal property across the state. It's I have a seat on the board, and we operate that company the same as the league program, right? It's for your benefit, specialty design municipal coverages, and what we find is the pricing is every bit the best in the marketplace that's out there, so that's important. Blair Rogacki's the CEO. He's not here, but he's a good guy. He knows what he's doing for sure. You can go to the next one. Yeah. You want to talk numbers?
Sure. I like numbers.
Yeah. CPA.
better not mess it up now. So, in total here, you know, you can see with the dividend, that's how workers' comp works in the state of Wisconsin. You get a dividend. You know, I'm going to start at the bottom. You know, we're going to be saving you over $27,000. We've done, and in a credit to Eileen and Kathy, they really spent a lot of time, because the next question is, boy, you're saving that kind of money. What are we missing, right? We got to be missing some coverage. We got to be missing some type of services, something. And I would say overall, from what we were able to show you, and that's what we see not just with the Village of East Troy. We've had a lot of new accounts come on, and we can generally, and I don't say 100% of the time, but every time I've done it recently, when we've competed, we can come with a better price, better services, and better coverages. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, just to kind of tell you some of the highlights. So it will be an improved plan. I think a lot of it has to do that we are a non-for-profit, so we can reinvest in the program. We can charge the premiums that are most beneficial to you. I think that's the high-level summary. If we wanted to dig into that, we could see some of the highlights here on differences. We don't have to charge for an umbrella. We'll learn about that, and the reason is because our policy is set up to be what they'd call non-aggregated. You have your limits, and you can use those as many times as necessary, so then you don't need an umbrella. I would tell you our cyber program, we're going to keep working on that, but that saves some significant money. But overall, we're going to be having a better dividend. That's just the program that Matt set up. You get a 20% dividend, so that saves you another $4,000. So it's like that credit card bill. All these little things just keep adding up, and Matt did a nice job with offering you a really good premium. And we'll show you in a little bit why it's a good premium, but it's also good services and the coverage you need.
Paul, I just wanted to add a comment. So the total savings is a little different than my memo, and that is related to the liability insurance and a difference in payroll numbers that we had, correct?
Yeah, there was a few changes towards the end with payrolls, and it was changed on the work comp because that's what drives that premium. And then when we met last week, we noticed that there was an update on liability, so we're able to offer you more savings there too. All right, so I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit about this, and I'll just add as we go. But this section here is just where I talked about it. We got the pricing. Remember, I talked about the three-legged stool of insurance, which is pricing, coverage, and services. This is that coverage improvements that you'll be getting.
And we won't belabor this too long. I know you guys don't really want the details of intricate insurance coverage, but we wanted to kind of highlight the fact that there's actually increased coverages available through our program than what you have now. An important one right at the top is your autos. You know, we are going to give replacement costs on your autos, newer autos of certain value, where right now all your autos are on actual cash value, which means they get depreciated at the time of loss. Autos on replacement costs, you know, if you total one out, you get the money for a new one. It doesn't get depreciated on what the payment is. Paul mentioned your liability limits. We don't have an aggregate, which means there isn't a total sum that gets accumulated towards and then coverage stops. So we have a per occurrence limit. I think we quoted $5 million. So you have $5 million each and every claim. It doesn't stop at $10 million or twice that, right? Enhancement. We also offer an occurrence-based coverage form, which means no matter when you report a claim, as long as it occurred when you had a policy with us, we'll cover it. Right now, a couple of your coverages are on claims made, and we won't get too far in the details, but basically that limits you on how timely you have to report claims to the carrier before they can cut you off. We have lower deductibles than what you have under your current program. You know, we quoted $1,000. Right now you're at a couple different deductibles, $2,500, $3,500 on some different coverages, so there's some nice benefit there. A little bit better no-fault sewer backup coverage. And then the rest of them are kind of property related. I would also point out cyber liability. That's a huge portion of our program, and we're really happy with the type of coverage we offer as well as the resources behind that. There's everything from sample policies and procedures, online training. If you need phishing email testing, penetration testing, that's all available to you on this program. So
Is that builder's risk, the property builder's risk, is that aggregate or is that for each individual project?
that's for each individual project, and that's a per occurrence limit. And that is, 2.5 million is substantial. Yeah, yep. Yep. Yeah, you can go to the next one.
Can I
me-
just mention one thing on that?
Yeah.
Can you just go back once? I saw on the, so on the flood coverage is very important because there is water in the area, right? And you are near flood zones, but your buildings are not in flood zones. They'd call it the ISO form, the standard form in the industry would say if you're within 1,000 feet of a flood zone, that there's not coverage. You usually have to go to FEMA to get it. We have a different form, and it gives you $5 million for each location, not just in total for the entire village. And it's a broader form of flood coverage, where as long as the building's not in the flood zone, you get that coverage. And so you do have coverage at all locations, and it's $5 million, so it's a really good limit. It's higher than what you see in the standard industry, so.
Okay, some of the good stuff. Just move through this quickly. So we have a lot of resources available to you guys that are of no cost to utilize. Rebound, this is our injury management program. This is to get people that are injured into specialists quickly, and I'm talking within 24, 48 hours. So we know what's happening, how long it's going to take. You can have a diagnosis. If you need surgery, we'll get surgery. We'll get you in PT right away. The idea is treat it kind of like an athletic injury, not a passive treatment with your doctor. So this is a great program. We can get into the details with the staff, but this is a great thing that saves on overtime costs, saves on your workers' compensation, lost time costs. We are going to come in on your property and do a full appraisal at no cost, make sure you're insured correctly. That's a huge value. That can be tens of thousands of dollars that won't come out of your pocket. We talked about cyber already a little bit. And then workers' compensation is probably my favorite. That kind of dovetails with the rebound program. We can't control how much we charge in premium. The state sets the rates for workers' compensation, so all we can do is best manage the claims as we can, right? So we have all sorts of things available for all different departments, whether it's DPW, police, fire, all sorts of return to work programs if you need that. We have online training on things like that. We have a nurse hotline, so people can call it if they're injured 24/7. On the liability side, we have free, no-cost legal service. A lot of people use this for like employment-related issues, but if you want to talk to an attorney on a specific issue, you have access to some of our municipal attorneys that'll help you out on any of that. It gets used all the time, but it's not limited to HR. If you want to call on a law enforcement matter, a land use zoning issue, whatever it might be, that's available to you. We have an online university that is got all the departments covered, all different topics on training. I know not everyone sits in front of a desk all day, but if it's new hire or a rainy day, whatever it might be, that's available for you. It's pretty slick. We support the use of the Lexipol policies and procedures, as well as any other company that you would use. We reimburse up to $2,500 every year for the cost of that. I think that's a pretty good program. If you want to get accredited by the Wiley Ag Group, we refund the cost of that. Our management training program, we have an individual that works with us that has had a lot of management training background. So if you have supervisors, managers, anything that you want to get trained up on what it means to be a manager, what that entails, best practices, employment issues, things like that, we can do that as a group. We can do that individually for you guys, however you want it. So that's a quick rundown.
So 3 seconds on this. When I talk about an insurance program, this is part of the insurance program. And the thing I like about it, and coming from a CPA background and trying to do cost savings, this is going to save you money. It's going to save you with free credits. It's going to save you, I know there was a manager training program that I think you were talking about maybe doing. This provides it for you. So no need to go to market on that. We have it for you. And then the human resources thing, if you need to look at your employee manual, whatever the case is, we have that, so.
Little late on that one. We're looking at the end of it tonight.
At least you were doing it.
I did want to say, on the rebound program, that also applies to employees who are injured off the job
Correct.
as well. They can utilize that resource even if it's a personal
Yeah,
injury.
and we just expanded it to families. So anyone who's in the municipality, it becomes an employee benefit. So I mean, if you had a son or daughter that got hurt playing basketball, and, you know, we would get you into these accredited doctors and they would put you at the top of the list to get you in right away. So it's, they expanded it to that, and I think we'll be soon coming out with mental health and cancer as well. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't know how much you guys are into insurance, but United Heartland is one of the premier carriers in the industry, and we use them to adjust our claims, do loss control. You know, we just put a little bit of information on here, but you'll have a dedicated service team that's at the carrier adjusting your claims, and they have experience in municipalities, so it's a really nice setup. You'll have someone who's loss control, who's gonna be boots on the ground, talking to department managers and helping out with safety. You have a very good mod, we wanna keep it that way. All right, so, again, that three-legged stool of insurance is how I like explaining this, because it is really, keeps it nice and basic. Cost, you know, we talked about the savings there, over $27,000. And then there's gonna be savings that we're gonna be getting and offering through other areas too. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the safety grant?
Sure. So each year, we usually dedicate some money to a safety grant, and what that is basically free money to use as purchase towards safety-related equipment. We can give you suggestions, ideas, things that work best, you know, things like manhole lift covers, lift gates on trucks, things like that. But that's free money that comes to you guys to use however you see fit. We don't put any restrictions on it other than we suggest, you know, for safety-related items. You know, that's got some payback for you and for us, so we feel like that's time well spent. So it's usually 2% of your workers' compensation premium. And we've done it annually for a number of years now, so I would expect that to continue. So that's just another nice flow of money into the community, for sure.
All right, and then the other two legs of the stool of insurance is coverage and service. You know, we talked about those areas. If you guys have any questions or however you want to do this, Eileen, but we definitely have coverage improvements and service improvements, and yeah, if you're interested in talk about that, or you want me to keep talking about it, up to you guys.
I say we open it up and see if the board has any questions on any of the information that was supplied.
Have we received the requirements with regard to the cyber insurance?
Receive the requirements.
Yeah, you guys no doubt have a list of requirements for being able to cover cyber insurance, right?
Right, yep.
So anyway,
Yeah,
You wanna
you know,
talk a
that's, usually that's things like you gotta have multi-factor authentication in place, EDR endpoint detection, cloud backup, things like that, just to get like a higher level of coverage. Yep,
and then I would add, you know, there's the limits. You know, it's $1 million policy. I put up here, it's gonna be an ongoing thing, because really, cyber has been such a difficult area. Carriers don't even wanna release a renewal until 30 days before the renewal. We got one just because Matt has a program, but we wanna make sure that you have the right coverages too, so. And then it gets into all these, they make an insurance and CPA become an IT person, because they wanna talk about multi-factor authentication, they wanna talk about cyber crime, they wanna talk about all these other things, so ransomware, we wanna make sure you have the right coverage.
I don't know, I am a CPA who wants to talk about IT, so. Yeah, I think just, you said, you know, to me earlier, I'd like to just see the details and you know, later, you know, that, and just understand the operational, you and I have talked about MFA. There's an operational impact. We rolled it out at my employer for cyber insurance purposes, and it's a
Good.
challenge.
I'm glad you know of it. A lot of-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just because that is such a hot topic and it keeps changing, I think maybe one of our thoughts was that everything else is pretty much in place. That one would be maybe something that we'd come back to you and say, okay, let's just look at that program and talk to you about that at your next meeting.
Yeah, I guess one question I had, I don't know, maybe could we go back to the slide that had the dollars on it? Yep. Yeah,
I would have expected that out of you.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. But my question is just, what's your kind of like your growth pattern in terms of costs? You know, have they been relatively steady? Have they been increasing? Because, you know, if we go with you guys, we've got a nice savings for this year, but are we like back to
Can I
a
say
big
something real
increase?
quick here?
Sure.
Matt's going to answer this, but thanks for asking. And a fellow CPA, I didn't even set you up for that, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We're never going to lowball you and then come back next year and throw a big increase at you. That's not how we do it. If we're not comfortable with the pricing as is, we're not going to do it, right? That doesn't help you guys. That doesn't help the members in our program. You know, this year, just for this January 1st, all our renewals, is the first time in 4 years we're implementing a rate increase, and it is 2% on liability. Everything else we see out there is 10, 15, 20. And it's really kind of that inflation factor, right? You know, on autos, you can't hardly get an auto. You can't rent a replacement auto or get it fixed like you used to. So we're kind of on the mindset, we don't want to charge any more than we have to, but we need to look farther ahead. And if we want to take a little now, that's much better than coming back, you know, years down the line and trying to chase a big number. That doesn't help you guys in the long run. So we take this view, we want to be stable. And that's a huge deal when we talk with our board about how much dividend do we pay each year, how much do we allocate to a safety grant when we set the rates. But we want to be as stable as possible. Our board has said we'd rather have stable long-term premiums than big dividends, right? So we don't want to take your money and then just turn around and give it back to you later. We'd rather keep things as steady and low as possible. So that's a great question.
And maybe you could mention the dividend, how much we've given over the last few years too.
Millions.
Isn't it
Yeah.
been about $2 million over the last 4 years each year?
Last year was $2 million. Before that was 2.7. Before that was 3 and 3.5 million. So, and that's, you know, we didn't raise rates, right? Operations, you know, our expense ratio is really low. So it's operating efficiently. And if we got that money back, we'll give it back to you guys.
I think something to keep in mind too is when they're coming up with their rates, you're only dealing with Wisconsin exposures because of it being the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. So we're not dealing with hurricane exposures across the country and those type of things affecting our rate and our renewal.
Yep. Yep.
Is the only thing I noticed that was significantly higher was, where's a public officials liability, and I'm assuming that's just because you insure municipalities?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we see this a lot with EMC. We compete against them a lot. And generally, their public officials and general liability are lower than ours, but we're much lower on like auto, right? And that kind of goes to who's an expert in municipal insurance. We have the largest database of insurance operations and claims in the whole state, right? So we're pretty confident what our actuary comes up with for rates and what we need to charge, that's accurate to capture the exposure. And actually, if we look at it, we're probably under on our rate for like things like police and public officials. But public officials is not just your actions here. That also includes employment practices in that coverage form, which is a pretty active loss category.
So the list of villages and cities that you have on here, the plan participants, why are some black and some are red? Trying to figure that one out.
They've color-coded the ones that are R&R accounts out of the entire list. Yep.
So those would probably be the ones that are closest to you, because we cover all of southeastern Wisconsin.
Kathy did do some reference checks as well. She called some villages and cities nearby, and I guess number one, the first thing to remember that I had commented to Matt when he said they insure that you're expecting 495, I think, as of 1/1. And I said, oh, that's about a quarter. You guys have about a quarter of the municipalities, but he reminded me they only insure cities and villages. So, of the 1,800 municipalities in Wisconsin, a portion of those are towns and they're not even eligible for this insurance coverage. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But Kathy did do reference calls and had no negative feedback.
Yep.
Any other questions?
If the board is inclined to approve transitioning to this insurance tonight, I would suggest that we hold off on cyber. I wanted to find out what the renewals on cyber were because we don't get those till 30 days before, and I was asking Paul some questions on that today. But I'm very comfortable with the rest of the program. Kathy has done a thorough review and asked a lot of questions, and so have I. So we're both very comfortable with the recommendation to transition the coverage.
I'll make a motion to approve transitioning the coverage and holding on the cyber liability till we can get some more information.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for presentation.
Thank you.
All right, dam project update. Tim?
But you like your pivot tables.
Yes, I do. I'm learning. I'm channeling my inner accountant. So just kind of give you a quick update of where we're at. We do have a punch list in with RLP, and we asked them for a schedule as well as some additional costs for additional features. I think we had talked about trying to round out. We had obviously some storm damage previously, and want to talk about some of that as well. But I'd say about half or majority of the items he's just covering as they're truly punch list items, and those are the items up there at the top there. And then real touching base real quick on schedule. We'll get into the cost and stuff in a minute, but on schedule, he's kind of telling us weather dependent. I said, hey, I need some real more specifics on when the mill pond's getting fixed up. He's removed a lot of the stuff there, still working on it. Obviously, we have some weather coming in, and then he's off next week for the Christmas holidays. So he's telling me first, second week of January to get the mill pond fixed up, cleaned up, pending some 20-degree days and above. So that's where we're kind of at on those items. So additional items, some additional riprap. We're talking about some additional riprap at the end sections where the storm sewer outfalls are. There's some smaller cobbles there. The big flush pushed some of those down into the stream. So we'd like to get some bigger riprap established there. So that's one item of the additional costs because he's got to bring new material in. Stream bank stabilization, that is where the areas where we're talking about where some of the stream banks kind of sloughed and the existing material there, I'll say compressed, but also sloughed out into the stream. And so we got a cost of $40 per foot on that. Our memo shows about $16,000 worth of work to be done there, but I think it's really gonna take some variability on really once we get out there and measure some of these areas when we can be out there where we'd really want to address some of these. Some of where some slumping's happening, we've got the pond area as well as some of the banks that really there's some damage there. So that's one item. My favorite, fixing the northern pike. I've kind of joked it's a shovel in about 10 minutes of the work, but he's quoting us $250 for that. So that's a not to exceed number. Some work on the riffles, bringing some additional boulders in. This is some big, heavy, large cobbles we're looking to bring in there. That's some substantial work. I think it would really be benefited. And then some boulders again right at the shoreline of that first riffle. During that storm, the banks held, but there was some concern that if the storm had continued on, it may have jumped around the riffle, and so we'd like to stabilize that additional area there as well. So that's a substantial amount of boulders you have to bring in to essentially reinforce that area. Construction costs overall on the pivot table. The contract amount with, including the first two amendments, so including those amendments, we're at 1.13 million, and the work to date is at 1051. So we're 81,000 under that budget still. So we're still in pretty good shape cost-wise. With these not to exceeds, we'll be looking at about additional $33,000 worth of work. So getting us closer to that total amount. But still, obviously, for a project like this, still in pretty good shape. So what we're hoping to do is get some thoughts on, hey, do we want to authorize this additional work, or do we want to pull back on some of it? Also knowing that schedule-wise, some of these items need frozen ground, but then some of the items also need some thawing as well. So it's gonna be kind of tricky timing-wise. You talk some of that shoreline where would be redoing the erosion mat. It has to be relatively frozen ground to get in there, but that also has to have thawed to be able to be workable and usable. So it's kind of a tricky thing schedule-wise on how to attack it without being not able to do the work, but also not rutting up and damaging really what's there today. So I guess if there's any questions or thoughts from the board, I'd be open to them.
Just got a quick question for you. In the engineering process that you went through with this whole project, we anticipated sizes that were needed just for what was happening within that stream area. Was there any anticipation? I know that it was a heavy amount of rain that came through, but was there any anticipation in that engineering to size up any of this? And was that done at that time?
Yeah, so I would say,
my concern is really that we're gonna size up again, and then it's still not going to be enough if we have another heavy erosion event.
sure. So I would say this, I don't think there was enough material brought in during construction at some of those outfalls and some of these riffles. But also, that's also why we're currently under budget. There's some additional larger stone cobbles that really needed to be brought in. We're talking about these being adds now, but some of this is really just finishing the work original. That's, we look at being $81,000 under budget. I think there's some missing items out there that that really are needed, but also would have been included in the project already.
What about your plan for the shoreline that's sloughing down inside? I mean, are they gonna be doing something substantial that's gonna prevent that, or were they thinking about a stone seawall?
What we're looking at doing is actually utilizing the existing erosion mat that's out there, that's kind of sloughed down, basically removing it, taking material, putting it back on top, and I'll say creating a burrito, but it's wrapping it to create basically a vegetated log using that same material that's already out there.
But what's gonna anchor it down is what I'm saying.
Larger stakes.
I know some of the residents talked about there were some metal stakes out there that have those been removed, or are those a danger?
There was metal stakes?
I don't recall, and I saw
Yeah.
some small plastic ones out there.
Maybe I was on some of the mats that they used, when they were trying to keep the erosion from their equipment when the soil was so soft.
Oh, I see,
Are we
yes.
talking about the same type of material? Because there was a safety concern.
Yeah, I'm probably talking about the logs they use to get their machinery out there. Yeah, that's not this. We're gonna put some additional stakes into the erosion mat, but they're gonna go in deeper. But not, I know what you're talking about. There's some big rods that were kind of found out there that were used to keep their mats together that they floated their machinery on. That's not what's gonna be used out there.
Have they cleaned that up?
I had my staff out there removing some that was brought to our attention. Not to say that there isn't more, but what I know of has been removed.
So if I understand correctly, we're 81,000 under budget.
Under budget based on the change orders we added, but yes.
But yes, okay, and we have 33 in additional work that we need to do that, in your opinion, should have been part of that in the original point.
Yeah, there's some of it's cleanup. Some, half of that, really 16,000 of it or so is that shoreline area that's slumped because of the material that was there in the storm and whatnot. And some of this is, hey, we just really need to bring some additional material in.
So in reality, we'll be $48,000 under budget if we approve these change.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we need to think about, like around the ponds, or, I mean, I know we're waiting for the freezing, but, have we gotten the water flow that we're looking for, the water depth?
Yeah, the pond, the additional pond actually is functioning really well.
There's no sign of the stream wanting to go back to its original.
No, that actually, that area really turned out well.
Tim, I just want to be sure for clarity here, we're not looking at retainage affecting these numbers, are we?
No.
Okay.
Is there any vegetation management we need to do here in the winter?
Not in the winter. There will be some additional vegetation costs included that we still need to as far as the long term. So there is some additional costs coming for that.
And there's a significant amount of punch list work when it comes to grass and areas that need to be fixed that weren't done right the first time.
But we also have capital budget in addition to what we're talking about here, right, for 2023?
Specifically for the dam project? We didn't
I don't-
specifically budget for
I
anything
don't think
in
we
2023.
budgeted anything in '23 for this.
I thought we had some money, 23 or 24, maybe it was under parks, not for remediation, but
I know it wouldn't be '23 because the '23 parks money is going to be baseball field stuff.
okay, I'll go back and look then.
You're talking it was originally under the requested budget from Parks, but we talked about that maybe not being part of that budget this cycle. So 32,000 to basically finish everything off.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, it's good, and schedule-wise, very, very variable.
I'll make a motion to approve proceeding with all of these punch list items, and I'll actually say Jason's authorized to go up to 40,000 just in case things change on the ground.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tim.
One last thing, we did submit for the reimbursement grant as well to DNR,
How much is that? 750?
400,000.
Oh, 750?
750 was the Main Street project.
No, on a side note, we received that money, though. The 750.
750.
All right, discussion regarding proposed ethics ordinance and how complaints are to be handled with possible direction to staff. Everybody did read our attorney's recommendation, his memo on that, right?
I think that
Oh, good.
we keep it consistent.
I see no need to set up a separate ethics board.
I agree with that 100%.
So following the state statutes as recommended.
Hold on, I want to clarify. So the state statutes would mean that we're not going to do our own ethics code. At least that's the way I'm interpreting it. Are we going to enforce it like municipal ordinances?
Yeah,
is
that's what I
basically
mean.
what-
Keep
yes.
it consistent with what we're doing already.
So we want to move forward with the code of ethics, but not have a board, so I can bring it back with that process in place instead.
Yes,
If,
yes.
if needed, then we can maybe utilize an existing board like they suggest.
Yeah, well, we talked about that, and there's concerns with that, because you can't have people who are serving in other roles, and we have such a hard time finding people to volunteer for positions like that in the village, so.
And I like the idea of having the police department pursuing the investigation and issuing any citations that may need to be, and then having the judge handle whatever he needs to at that level. Makes the most sense.
Okay, we'll bring that back to reflect that.
Thank you. All right, review of chapters 5 through 7 of personal manual with potential approval from for the entire manual.
I've never even read my personal manual for my job, so
Are you admitting that
I
publicly?
am publicly, yes.
Aren't you kind of in an HR field?
Doesn't mean I have to read it.
So does anybody have any questions about what was presented so far? Everybody's comfortable with what Eileen has presented to us so far?
Yeah, and once again, I appreciate the red line copy. It makes things much clearer for me.
Thank you. I'm sorry I forgot to include that in the packet materials.
That's all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated personnel manual to be effective 1/1/2003, allowing the staff to make minor grammatical and formatting corrections prior to distribution to staff.
I'll
You mean-
second that.
You mean 2023, don't you?
That's what I said.
You said 2003.
I thought you said 20.
I heard
I said-
2003,
I
sorry.
said 2023.
See, now I can't,
Okay,
you
we got a
can't
mo-
read, I can't hear.
Okay, we get a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
No, we have a motion.
We
Oh,
have a
I thought you
motion.
said, can
No,
we get
We
one?
have a motion
I
in a
thought so.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, provide direction to staff regarding No Mow May 2023. So this whole thing, really, it looks like ignoring it until June 1st is our best solution. I would love to see people that want to do it have to pay some kind of fee, but that's my own personal opinion on it. I understand their desire to pollinate and have the bees come and frolic in their yards, but I also know that it does diminish property values with neighboring homes and also causes rodent problems. That's the other thing that nobody seems to really think about. But I think that probably the best, in my opinion, is probably just to ignore it until June 1st.
How many did we have last year? How many people did not?
Yeah, probably around a dozen. And it's, we just, we could have them sign up with us, but then we have to have staff take care of that. And it's just something that's just gonna take time. And I just don't, and we don't need to promote it. If they wanna do it, they can do it. If not, if
Just
not.
make sure everybody knows then after the first, it's gotta be cut.
Did we have any issues with anybody after the first that didn't cut?
No, everybody cut right away after the first, so we didn't have any issues.
I mean, and I think, as you said in your memo, if there's a safety issue, obviously, you can, talk to them.
Is that enough direction? All right, great. Moving on to ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 2022-16, adoption of 2023 municipal fee schedule. One thing that I did talk to Jeremy about, Lori, in the fee schedule is the permits for parking, for winter overnight parking. We have a statement in there that indicates first permit, and then 2 are allowed, and then it says second permit and 2 are allowed per household. I think that's a little confusing, and I think it's still written in there because we did have a differing charge in the past for those. I think it was 50 and 25. Now, no matter what, 2 permits, it's 75. So we should probably reword that to simply state overnight parking fees, $75 per vehicle, maximum 2 per household.
I can correct that.
Sound about right, Jeremy? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-16 as amended by President Seeger.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2022-17, accepting public utilities from Quick Trip. Any questions on this?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-17.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2022-18, accepting public utilities from m and P Power Systems, conditioned upon receipt of acceptable lien waivers as determined by the village engineer. Have we received those lien waivers yet?
Yes, we received confirmation from the engineer today that the lien waivers we received were acceptable.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-18.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. Any questions about emergency services from 11:15? Any questions about the airport minutes from 6:13 through 10:10?
Am I the only one that noticed a similarity in all the copies of these notes?
That's going to change in January.
I was waiting to see the start and finish time being exactly the same as well.
Actually, no, the month was changed, and the one word absent, and then the date at the bottom. That's the only difference between July and June.
How about anybody have any questions about the library minutes from 11:08?
I don't know if I can ask this here, but have we got any updates from the county on the library?
Nothing so far. But my question, though, is when you do switch, we do switch in January over to the Prairie Lake Shores Library System, is Steve still going to be involved with that? Is he still the man that has the formula?
Steve does, and I was appointed to that.
Can you get involved with that whole discussion about how his formula? Excellent, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1E for the purpose of conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, cell tower lease and dam and or improvement impoundment area. And 1985 1C to confer with legal counsel for government body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, PFAS-related litigation.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
President Seeger?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander? Trustee Nugent? Trustee Johnson? Trustee Renucci?
Yes.
Trustee Smalley?